Assalamualaikum, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Walaikum.
Welcome to Stories with Ghar Waalay, an initiative by Rotaract Club of SZABIST. This activity is being
Thank you.
conducted to bring back all those memory and inspirational stories that our elders have lived through to help raise our spirits and guide us through these troubling times. Thank you for joining us. We value your time and would like to jump straight into the questions. Firstly, how are you managing?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm managing it quite well. Honestly, I'm keeping up a routine. Uh, with Ramzan, obviously, it's a little more challenging because your normal routine is very different from your Ramzan routine. So, that is still a little challenging, especially waking up to take an early morning class. Fortunately, I just have one early morning class that's on Friday. Most of my classes are at 3:30, so that's fine. But I think for any crisis of such nature or anything where you cannot leave your house, it's very important to set up a routine and follow that. So I've been doing that for the past 2 months, and I think it's going well. Uh, there is one or time when there's a need to get out of the house. But I'm fortunate that I live in an area where I can at least go out for walk or jogging. So that's a blessing.
That's great. So, Sheikh, can you share a memorable event from your past or maybe your childhood that you can never forget?
Okay, yeah, there's so many events, and whenever anybody asks me this question, it's really hard to pinpoint one particular event. But I think childhood memory or adulthood memory, what specifically would you like to
Any
hear?
story it can be from your childhood as well.
Actually, any time which is spent with family or with loved ones or with your friends, it's a memorable time. And these days, one tends to recall those times because I think one of the blessings of COVID-19 is that we're getting more times with our thoughts. So that's something positive. I think most of my memorable memories are associated with any time we went out as a family to any place. My dad was in the army, so we moved around a lot. As you know, that after every 2 years, you have to relocate from one place to another. And with that being said, I also ended up visiting a lot of places in Pakistan, which probably I never went again. So one of my fondest memories was a vacation that we planned in that was in 2000, I think 2002. Yeah, 2002. We went as a family for almost a month to Sawat. We stayed in particularly in Mingora. That was our base camp, and we moved around to all the. And this is before the Taliban events and everything. So back then, Swat was considered to be a paradise. It still is a paradise, but uh, uh, I almost went to all the places like Malam Japa, Peri, Kalam. Kalam is one place I think it's been more than 17, 18 years that I've not been there, but I can still recall that entire part of living there for 2, 3 days, going to a glacier called Ushu Valley, going to that Ushu Lake. So I think any time, any trip with the family is memorable. And as you grow old, you don't get a chance to go out as a family that much, especially for trips, because everybody is busy, everybody has their own routine. So I think that particularly being a last vacation in which all of my family members were there, it's equally more important for me.
Absolutely. Family is such an integral part of our lives. So, sir, these situations have moved us into alternate lecture delivery, online classes. So, are you missing your students?
I'm actually, I think for most of the faculty, because mostly students think that it's only the students who are having a saturation point. I think most of us are also having a saturation point because, to be really honest, none of us is used to this kind of a platform. Uh, so initially it was a challenge just to get everything going, and I was glad that we just resumed the classes because at least some form of lecture or some form of connection is better than no connection. So if you recall, Zabis was a little late to restart the session because obviously they were looking into the situation. But once they did, initially I was glad that we were reconnected with the students. But uh, whatever you do, online classes will never replace the human interaction or the face-to-face reaction because obviously if let's say I teach an MBA class with almost 55 students. So getting a reaction from them, connecting with them, taking their point of view, the body language of the students, all of these things really matter when you're delivering a lecture. So we don't get that. We don't get that sort of a feedback that we would instantly get as when we're teaching in front of a live class. And obviously, this requires a little bit of innovation, in which you have to probe the students yourself. Uh, uh, I think one of the problem, one of the thing I miss is that since online classes shifted after the third session, so it didn't get or didn't give us enough time to connect with the students because if most of the students for me in this semester were new students, I haven't taught them before. So I really miss developing that sort of a connection with them, or we still talk over things on our class sessions, but I would be really honest, online classes is not a substitute for an actual classroom.
So, what have you been doing differently to manage a class online?
Sorry.
What have you been doing differently to manage a class online?
What I'm trying to like actually what I do is that I realized this in the second or third online session that these classes have to be a little unconventional. I can't treat this as like a 3 hour lecture session followed by a break, or a session which I have to like go on and on. So I try to make things more compact. I changed the way the delivery of the lecture is done to a more basic level. So we concentrate. I concentrate more on uh, developing the understanding rather than going through the entire texture of that lecture. So mm, for me, and the other thing I realized that the session cannot be prolonged for more than 1.5 hours. So I try to restrict it around that same time frame because I personally think that the attention span really goes after the 30th or the 40th minute. So I try to what I particularly have done is I've tried to compress all my lectures, and I've changed the orientation of them to a more interactive based session rather than just a delivery of a lecture. And again, it's a little challenging, especially with the current timings of the class and everybody's fasting. So I did see, I felt that there was a dip in the interaction ever since the Ramzan has started, but I'm hopeful that it will pick up again.
I think students and teachers, we're all in this together and we have to work through this.
Yeah,
I think so
yeah,
far,
that's what I talk to all the students as well. I say that it's not just hard for you guys; it's hard for us as well.
exactly. So I think so far all of Zabist and all the faculty have been doing a great job in getting all these lectures to us and keeping the classes informative. So, sir, can you suggest any new activity that we can maybe start uh, learning a new skill, maybe that can help us have a more relaxing quarantine, maybe a more joyful one?
Uh, yeah, I think. Uh, there are different set of activities. For me, like personally, physical activity has always been a major part of my life. So I would actually try to encourage anyone or all the students or everybody who's at home and cannot go out to just start doing some sort of basic exercises that they can do within their room. Obviously, you can't actually go out to purchase equipment, but some of the online shopping services are offering delivery to certain equipment. So see what for me what I did was I got myself an exercise cycle. So I do that. I specifically keep a routine in which I have to exercise for a cycle for an hour, and then another walk or a jog session for an hour. So I would suggest that the only way one can get mental peace is through exercise. So any sort of an exertion, because I think a lot of people have that frustration in built in when they're sitting and watching television, or the screen time, especially because of this crisis, has increased for all of us. So it's really important to change that, do some sort of physical activity, and any sort of online platform in which we can organize, for example, easy exercise sessions which we can do within our room, or any yoga type of session that we can organize for. Because I think right now it's really important that everybody is concentrating on the mental well-being. I think that physical well-being is also important, because obviously all of us are eating more than we're supposed to, and since there's nothing to do, most of us are trying to fine-tune their cooking skills. I've sort of become a breakfast specialist myself. I don't want to brag about it, but my cooking skills have improved drastically during the last 2 months, to such an extent that I think all of our mothers are now fed up from us and they want us to leave the kitchen.
It's been quite the same here. So, sir, to round off, any message for our generation, for these students that are about to graduate?
I think it's very challenging time that we're living in at the moment, and uh, uh, I'm sure that a lot of students who were in their final semester, because I'm teaching the last semester of BBA, so being I can recall when I was a student, the last semester was all about creating everlasting memories and having a good time at your university, enjoying your campus life for the very last time, because then you won't get a chance as a student to enjoy it. Obviously, as an alumni, you are more than welcome to come back anytime you want, but it's not the same. So I know a lot of the final students are disappointed because it was their last semester, and I wish I could say that the situation will get better, but I personally feel I was actually reading an article by two professors from Harvard University the other day, in which they were projecting that this pandemic is going to be here for another 2 years. So, inshallah, even when the things open up, we would have to adjust to this new way of life in which we have to wear masks, we have to avoid physical contact, we have to be vigilant as far as where we're going, who we're interacting with. So I would just advise them to not lose out their humanity in the process. So it's really important that you still continue with the good values that I'm sure that your parents and the university has imparted on you. I always advise everyone to be positive. Uh, this is the temporary situation. It will pass. Our lives will resume, and inshallah, we'll be stronger because of this. This has given us an opportunity to spend more time with our family, to connect with uh, people that we were not connecting. Actually, I appreciate that it has uh, halted the monotonous of life. I think most of the faculty we had a very uh, like a very hectic routine in which most of our day, an average day, a good part of our day was being spent at the university, and we were not getting. And everybody had variable timings. So somebody was taking a class in the evening, so we were not getting that much family time. So I'm one positive out of this is that family time has increased. Uh, it has increased too much. It's too drastic now, to an extent that all of our family members are like, "Come university, playing, come up to saying."
Thank you for that.
Yeah, so to sum it up, just remain positive. Just know that this is a temporary phase. It's not a permanent thing, and eventually things are going to get better.
It's very inspiring, sir. Inshallah, we'll get through this as a nation. So that was all from our side. If you'd like to add anything,
Thank you so much. I'm grateful that you guys took the initiative, and I'm happy that you wanted me to be part of this. And thank you so much, and wish you all the best.
thank you. So thank you so much for being part of this activity.
Thank you. Take care.